So, for context, my mom and I have always had a very strained relationship, but recently it came to a head when she decided to call off her wedding and she publicly accused me of having an affair with her fiancé, which was obviously not true at all. It was one of the most messed up things that she could have done, and it has effectively ended our relationship forever. My mom had me when she was 20, and my biological father wanted nothing to do with me, so she ended up raising me on her own, and she has always made sure that I know exactly how many sacrifices she has had to make for me, including the fact that she had to drop out of college because she couldn't afford a baby and her tuition. And her parents were also not happy with her decision of keeping the baby. And throughout my life, she kept reminding me how she had chosen me over everything and had to fight against all the odds to give birth to me and raise me. I mean, I don't understand why she keeps making it seem like she did it as a favor to me, because I was too young to even understand what was going on. And I didn't even ask her to do any of that. But anyway, I knew she had done a lot for me, so I always kept my head down, never argued whenever she would bring up these things, and just tried my best to do right by her and everybody else and have a good life. Then, when I was 5 years old, she started dating this man she had met at work, and he happened to be married. But that didn't make a difference to her. Now, let me just tell you guys, this is not first-hand information. I found out about it through the rest of the family, since it's pretty common knowledge and everybody has gossiped about it at some point or the other. One of my cousins told me about it, who had found out about it from her mother, and obviously she didn't have any reason to lie to me about any of this. So I do believe her. Anyway, the point is, my mom was dating a married man, and after a 6-month relationship, she found out that she was pregnant, and once again, everybody wanted her to terminate it. But she decided to keep the baby once again. And this time, I guess the guy was not a totally and completely awful person. So he decided to break things off with her, but he agreed to provide her with child support so she wouldn't have to handle everything on her own. Obviously, she did have to quit her job and everything, but the child support was good enough to keep everything under control. And I guess that's why my sister has always been her favorite. She has been the golden child in our family, and after she was born, it was that my mom couldn't care less about me. And after she was born, that was when my mom couldn't care less about me. Now it has been 25 years since my sister was born, and we have always hated each other. It's in her nature to try and pick on me, to put me down and do her best to annoy me. And in the beginning, I used to fight back against her, but soon enough, I realized that this was just a way for her to get on my nerves, and then eventually it would backfire on me because my mother was always on her side. And I would end up having to be the one to apologize, even though I haven't done anything wrong, and she got a huge kick out of it, so she continued to do it until she was well into her adulthood. And even then, she would take up each and every opportunity to belittle me, to humiliate me, and to make sure that I knew she was the preferred daughter. But I did my best to ignore her, and that made things a bit easier. My mom never changed. She continued to favor my sister over me. And for the past couple of years, we have hardly even kept in touch, and I only go home for the holidays because my mother insists that we stay together like a family at least once a year. And it has nothing to do with me. I'm positive about that. But she knows that the rest of the family might think badly of us if we don't see each other at all. So that's why, just to preserve a certain impression, she asks me to come by and spend Thanksgiving and Christmas with them. By New Year's, I'm always back home because there's only so much I can tolerate. Anyway, my mother has dated quite a few people, but then none of her relationships have lasted very long. However, for the past year, she has been dating this guy, let's call him Jared. We didn't think that this relationship would last this long because Jared is quite a few years younger than her. In fact, he's actually closer to my age than to hers, since he's 38. I was quite skeptical about it, but then a couple of months ago I found out that they were engaged and I realized that they were pretty serious about each other. I personally hadn't spent much time with him, but from whatever I had seen, I could tell that he really liked her, so in a way, I guess I was happy for them. And I could definitely see that my sister was very happy about this relationship. But at that time, even though I have us at home, I didn't see anything amiss about it, and I just thought that maybe she was just being supportive of the relationship, trying to make up for the fact that there were going to be a lot of people who would be skeptical of this relationship working out, given the age gap. But now, given everything that has happened, I think I can finally look back and see that there was something very off about the whole situation altogether. I was only there at home from Thanksgiving to Christmas, but even in those few days, I could see that my sister was spending a lot of time with Jared, and back then, even though I thought that it was just bonding, now I can say that there was something weird about it, and most of the time she would always try to talk to him whenever our mother was not around, which didn't make sense, especially considering how she was very quiet whenever she actually did happen to be around. And there was another thing. She would always sit very close to Jared, which even back then I found to be very weird. But anyway, all these things aside, I guess I was just not paying enough attention, because if I had, I would have seen what was going on and I would have been able to prevent all of this, or maybe not, because I don't think my mom would have ever believed anything that went against her belief and angelic perception of my sister. But anyway, now, coming to what has happened recently, my mom had her rehearsal dinner a couple of days back, and that was where everything went wrong. She was supposed to get married 2 days later, and even though there were very few people at the rehearsal dinner, it was still very embarrassing for me to be called out like that. And I'm never going to live it down. Basically, what happened was that after Jared had made his speech about how thankful he was to have found my mom, it was her turn, and she decided to talk about a conversation she had overheard a couple of days ago between Jared and his best man. Apparently, she had been listening at the door while he was speaking to somebody in his office, and he had no idea that she was already back home from work. And from whatever she had heard from his end of the conversation, she had deduced that he had been cheating on her or something of the sort, because he had been saying things like he wanted to put an end to whatever was going on with her daughter, since he was getting sick of her, and now that he was about to get married, he couldn't have this anymore because it was disturbing, and he didn't want my mom to find out about it because she would be very hurt, so he was trying to keep it all under control. From that, she had come to the conclusion that he and I had probably been having an affair, and she decided to say it out loud in front of everybody at the dinner without having anything to back it up. No text, no screenshots, nothing. I was obviously shocked because nothing like this was going on, and even Jared looked really upset. When my mom looked at him asking for answers after her little speech, he decided to tell her that she couldn't have been further from the truth. And now that she had done something like this, he felt it was important to let her know about the reality of the situation. And since I had been accused for no reason, even I really wanted to know, and everybody literally just held their breath waiting for him to speak up. She tried to prevent him from defending himself, but he was not having it. He went on speaking above her, and that's how we found out that whatever she had heard was true. He had indeed been having this kind of a conversation with his best man just a few days ago, and whatever she had heard was true. But the context of it was very different. Apparently he had not been referring to me at all. He had been referring to my sister, who had been trying to flirt with him and trying to hit on him all this while. After he got engaged to our mom, my sister got totally drunk at the engagement party, and she finally decided to confess to him that she had a thing for him, and she thought that he was making a huge mistake by choosing to get married to her mother because she was too old and he would never be able to be happy with her, and he was meant to be with my sister, not my mom. That was when it all started, and even though Jared had told her that he didn't want anything to do with her, that he wanted her to go, she kept trying to talk to him, flirt with him, kept coming out to him, actively trying to sabotage her mother's relationship. That's what he had been talking about. But she hadn't stayed long enough to hear that. She had stormed into the room after that, pretending as if everything was fine, and coming up with a stupid plan of exposing him in front of everyone, thinking that it would make him look bad. In reality, it just made her own look bad. And in reality, it just made her look bad. In fact, he also added that the only reason he had kept all this a secret from her was because he knew that she practically worshipped her younger daughter. And saying anything against her would be a sure shot way of ending things between them. And he didn't want that. But now, clearly, there was no other option left. He told her he was very disappointed in how she had chosen to deal with the situation, how she had acted like this was a soap opera or something, and gone for a dramatic exposition when she could have just spoken to him. He even said that he had been on the verge of telling her the truth himself. But he couldn't believe that in spite of how much her mom loved her, my sister could still do something so heinous. My mom looked shocked, to say the least, and so did everybody else, and obviously my sister started screaming he was lying. He was trying to frame her and trying to ruin the relationship. But the way she was getting so defensive, it was obvious he was telling the truth about her. And everyone knew that. I was so disgusted, I didn't even bother staying to see what happened afterwards. I just walked out, and I decided I didn't want anything to do with these people from now on. Later on, I found out from some other people who had been there that afterwards there was a lot of drama and a huge fight between my mom and my sister, probably for the first time in both their lives, and that was when the whole truth came out. My sister confessed that she had indeed done whatever she had been accused of, and she said she found it disgusting that her mother was dating somebody so much younger than herself, and she wanted him for herself because she knew that they would fit better together. By then, obviously, Jared had left. In fact, he had left just shortly after I had, because I don't think anybody had anything left to say after that stunt my mother had pulled off. Anyway, after that fight, the guests all left, and my mom decided to go back home, whereas my sister decided to go to a friend's place. She had been dropped off by the same cousin who told me about all of this, and she let me know that throughout the car ride, my sister kept ranting about how she was related to losers, how both me and her mother were the worst, and she wanted nothing to do with us anymore because we are the worst. Well, I can't say much about that. In fact, I'm quite happy we won't have anything to do with each other anymore because, frankly speaking, I don't think she deserves to have me be a part of her life. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but even though I don't like my mom, I'm sure that my sister doesn't deserve her either, because although my mom has never been a good mother to me, she was a good mom to my sister, and yet she couldn't appreciate that. It's all very disgusting, and I can't believe that somebody would be capable of doing something so pathetic. Anyway, all that aside, I had definitely made up my mind that I would never speak to my mom or my sister again, because clearly they're not the kind of people anybody would want in their life. But then about 2 hours ago, my mom reached out to me and sent me a very long message about how he was very sorry about how she had treated me throughout my life. She told me that she had resented me for all the wrong reasons, but all along I've been the only daughter worth keeping by her side. She told me that the only reason she never liked me and treated me so badly was because I always reminded her of how she had failed to do so much in her life, of all the sacrifices that she had to make, of how her life could have been very different if she had decided not to keep me. But at the end of the day, that was not my fault, and she realizes that now, and that it was all misdirected anger towards me. And apparently the only reason she had loved my sister so much, that she had showered so much affection on her instead of me, was because of the child support. Because she felt like when she had my sister, she was in a much more stable place in her life, and that's why, by default, she became the favorite. But clearly that was the wrong thing to have done, and now she was going to suffer because of all the mistakes that she had made. In the message, she also told me she would really want me to forgive her for whatever she had said and done all these years, and she wanted me to know that she was genuinely sorry, especially for whatever had happened at the rehearsal dinner, and that she had had no right to accuse me like that, especially considering the fact that she had no proof against me. And now that she knows the truth, it's easier for her to say that she probably would not have believed anybody if they had told her that it was her younger daughter who had done all of this and not me. Because she had always thought that her younger daughter was an angel, but clearly that was not true, and I was the only one worthy of being a good daughter, because in spite of everything, I had always kept in touch with her. I had always at least tried to be a real family with them in spite of how I had been treated in the past, and I was the most successful one, even though I had the most limited resources. Because while my sister's college tuition and everything has been paid for, I had to arrange all of that on my own, and yet I had come out on top with great grades and a good job, whereas my sister had always been mediocre, and the only thing that had made her special was my mother's preference for her. Apart from that, there was nothing so great about her, and she knows that now. She really wants me to forgive her so we can try and form a better relationship. Obviously, I found that very weird. And now I'm contemplating whether I should reply to that or not. Honestly, I don't feel like I want to come because I'm not a backup choice. I'm not a backup kid that she can discard whenever she wants to and then pick up when she realizes the kid she had invested most time and money in had turned out to be a bust. I feel a little bad about it because in the message she sounded pretty sincere about her apology, but I don't think I need to forgive her just because she has asked for forgiveness. So what now? AITA for refusing to forgive my mother and trying to fix my relationship with her? Edit. Hi, so just to make it clear, my father is not a part of my life, and in fact I don't even know who my biological father is. We've never discussed it, even though I have asked about it many times. My mother has just never wanted to tell me anything about it and the date. I don't know who he is, how he looks, and that's how it is. As for my sister, her father is definitely part of her life, even though she was an affair baby. Her father has been divorced twice since she was born and has 4 kids, including her. So naturally, he doesn't have a lot of time for any of his children, and he doesn't seem to be a family man either. But they do meet every 2 months, and he tries to support her financially as well. Since money is not a problem for him, I'm guessing that he does this with all of his kids, trying to make up for the time that he has never been able to give them by writing them checks whenever they ask for it. So my sister's pretty spoiled, and recently she had asked her father if he would be willing to give her a job in his company, and he had agreed. So I'm getting that that's why she thinks that she doesn't need her mom anymore. Well, good for her, I guess. I knew that she was always the kind of person who would do stuff like this, but it's good to see it in action because I think it's just vindicating. By no means am I saying that I'm very happy about how things are turning out to be in my family. But let's be real. I think if anybody was in my place, no matter how big of a heart they had or how generous they were of spirit, they wouldn't be able to think about all of this without getting a little smile on their face because it's just karma for the rest of these people. They have totally become the laughing stock for the rest of the family, and I can't say I feel bad for them. Update 1. Okay, so about a week ago, my mom had sent me that message. And I did not reply to it because I didn't have anything to say to her. I thought avoiding her and not replying to her would mean that she would be able to take the hint and she would leave me alone, but that didn't happen. Earlier today, she decided to come by, and when I opened the door, she was standing there with her bags. I was very confused because I didn't remember accidentally replying to her and telling her that she could come stay with me. And she tried to walk in, but I immediately stopped her and I asked her what she was doing because I was not going to run the risk of letting her in, and then she would eventually end up refusing to leave, even though I didn't want her here. She seemed a bit confused, but then she told me that she had left me an email saying that she would be coming over to stay with me for a couple of days because she couldn't stay in that house anymore. It reminded her too much of everything that she had lost, because that was the same house where she had been living with Jared and my sister under the same roof. Unfortunately, the email ID that she had sent me the message on was an old one, and I didn't have access to that anymore, so I had no idea. But anyway, I still told her that I hadn't read that message, and the fact that I hadn't replied to it should have been good enough for her not to show up, because I clearly meant that I did not want her here. I said that I had read the apology that she had sent, but just because I had read it didn't mean that I had to accept it, because she had treated me badly for a very long time. And that one apology, it fixes nothing. Besides, the only reason she was even feeling sorry for me and trying to repair our relationship was because she had finally realized that she couldn't count on her younger daughter anymore. And I'm sorry, but I'm not a replacement. I'm not okay with being that person, and she needs to realize that and back off. She seemed a bit surprised, but then she started to tell me that this was no way to speak to her, especially when she was coming here to repair our broken relationship and giving us a second chance. I told her that she has no position to be giving anybody any chances, and I asked her to leave. And that was when she started getting stubborn and started trying to force her way outside, trying to push me away, saying that she was not going to tolerate this kind of disrespect. But I just stood there very firmly, and I did not allow her to go in. Eventually, I told her that I would be calling the cops if she didn't leave, and that ticked her off even more. She spat at my foot, and it was pretty nasty. And she told me that clearly I was no better than her other daughter, and that she had raised a bunch of ungrateful brats. That she turned around and walked back to her car, stuffed her bags inside, and drove away. It's been a couple of hours since then, but I've been on alert because I don't want her coming back at any cost. I have made my peace with the fact that she's not going to be part of my life anymore. I have tolerated enough, and I don't need to do this anymore. And whatever the case is, I just cannot have her back with me. So I hope she takes this incident as a lesson and she chooses to stay away from me because I don't want her here. She has lost both her daughters, and she has nobody else to blame for any of that apart from herself. This is just karma, like I said. Update 2. So it's been 2 weeks since the incident where my mom decided to try and force her way inside my house, and I had to turn her away by threatening to call the cops. Between that day and yesterday, we had absolutely no contact, and I thought that she was finally getting over this whole thing, and she was going to leave me alone now, but I was wrong. This time, she went even further and she decided to show up at my workplace, and I swear to God, when the receptionist called me and told me that my mom had showed up in the lobby to try and talk to me, I could feel my heart drop. I didn't want her to create any drama in my workplace because it would create a pretty bad impression, so I decided to go down to the lobby and I met her. She looked pretty happy, and when I was close enough, she told me that she knew I would not let her in if she had gone to my house, so she had no other choice but to come here, and then quite happily she asked me if I wanted to accompany her to lunch. It was not my lunchtime, but even then I couldn't risk anything, so I decided to take an early lunch, and as soon as we were a good distance away from my office, I burst out at her and I told her that whatever she was doing was really messed up. And I was going to speak to my lawyer, file a restraining order against her because I was not going to let this slide. She genuinely had the audacity to look surprised when I said that, and she said that she thought we were going to lunch and we were going to have a good time and fix our relationship. And when I insisted I was going to go back to the office and if she followed me, I would call my lawyer immediately and I would have security throw her out, she started to tell me that I was acting unreasonable and this was no way to behave with my own mother. It was quite exasperating. She was taking all of this casually, and she really thought that this was a game that we were playing. But unfortunately, that was not the case. In the end, I just told her to back off and not follow me, and told her that she would be hearing from my lawyer. Then I took a smoke break and a long lunch at a restaurant, a little distance away from the office so that my mom wouldn't be able to find me. And I also spoke to my lawyer and explained the whole situation. And we are filing for a restraining order because this is not the way. I can't deal with this kind of crap anymore. Update 3. So guys, I'm very happy to inform you people that I finally have a restraining order against my mom and I'm not going to have to deal with her anytime soon. It's been a month since the incident at my workplace and luckily I guess she took me seriously that time and didn't bother me after that. But even then I had to take this extra precautionary measure because honestly with people like my mom you just don't know what's going on in their heads, and especially now she's clearly vulnerable because she has lost everybody that she thought she could rely on, so naturally she's been acting a little crazy and I'm not taking any risks with her, especially since I'm in the talks for a significant promotion right now. So I'm not leaving anything to chance. And even apart from that, this was just getting very annoying. So now I just have nothing to do with my family and it's a huge relief. It's a huge burden off my shoulders and I'm finally happy. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationship.